When Nikki first asked me if I'd be interested in speaking with this group, I was excited to do so. I was like, great, an organization really thinking about how to prepare law students to be great practicing attorneys. I was like, hey, I've probably got about 9 really good tips that I really want to share. Then she told me I'd be speaking on Friday evening after a long day of sessions, and I decided you'd probably be more interested in 3 tips. So here we go. What I've thought about, what are the 3 things I might tell myself about thinking about early in my career and things I would like to keep in mind. So those 3 things are, be the best investment, be ready to take action in the face of the unexpected, and be approachable. So let's talk about these. Be the best investment. I think most people are already thinking about how they want to make sure they're invested in themselves. Whether it's investing in, your own learning, investing in your family, your personal relationships, your friends, and just like making sure you're doing all you can to grow in those ways. But what I also want to talk about is how to make sure you're the best investment for others. Because honestly, you need other people to invest in you in order to grow in this profession. You might think, why do you need other people to invest in you? Well, you might be surprised to know that, the practice of law is not really taught in law schools. It's actually taught by other lawyers in practice. So while you'll get a lot of foundational knowledge and you'll learn a lot about the subjects, you'll actually learn to practice from practicing attorneys. And in order to do so, you need people to want to spend that time with you and want to put the energy into it. So for me, somewhere in the midst of law school, I understood that I was not going to be a litigator, that I was more interested in commercial transactions. So I did everything I could once I had that understanding to take the classes that kind of fit that interest. So I took classes on corporate law, classes on mergers and acquisitions, classes on venture financing. So I felt really prepared. I had a lot of the foundational information. By the time I got to my summer internship and then later practicing full time, I quickly understand those foundational understandings were just the beginning. What I really needed to learn was not just the what about the practice of law, but the how, and most importantly, the why. Now, there are some people that will pick up the how and the why with limited explanation, but I was a mere mortal. And so for myself, I really definitely needed the help of people who were more senior than I was to help, point me in the right direction, giving me the benefit of their experience, or really just answering some of my questions, and I had lots of them. I learned so much from having more senior attorneys that were willing to invest in me. Again, being the best investment, and also making sure you find a place where you have willing investors. Now, I'm going to warn you that investment may not look like what you think it might. It could take various forms. It could be in the form of a back in my day story, which, if you're not aware, you're currently in the middle of right now. So congratulations, consider this one of your investments. So, where was I? Back in my day, the way we used to think about, learning from others and, putting that information to good use, what I really wanted to do was to ensure that, everything I got from those attorneys who were willing to spend that time, giving me that information, I was able to operationalize that in my work. And if you've attended the sessions today, I took a look at what some of them were related to and produce an amazing work product. So I would say congratulations. You're already taking some of the first steps in being a great investment, which is how do you ask the right questions? How do you make sure you're delivering the work product that's expected? How do you touch base, at the right interval to make sure that what comes back is what's expected? So you're already doing some of those things today. Now, I think you're ready to implement that cycle of when people do spend that time and when you are working, in your, whether they're summer roles or later full-time roles, thinking about delivering the results that, for everything someone's willing to put in, you'll be able to deliver a better end product for them. And before long, you'll find yourself hopefully having many great investors. The next thing I would tell myself is I should be ready to take action in the face of the unexpected. So you may have heard that these careers are more like a marathon than a sprint. Well, I'll also add to that it's a marathon in which you actually don't know the weather forecast, and you may not know the terrain, no matter how much you think you might. A few months after starting my job, the first job out of law school, the economy would be in the midst of the 2008 financial crisis. I considered myself ready for what the career would bring. A few months after that, actually the economy got worse. And so what that meant was there was less legal work to go around. Soon I saw law firms laying off associates, including many people who graduated with me in my law school class or other friends. And I must admit, even though the title of the section is Be Ready to Take Action in the Face of the Unexpected, after a few rounds of layoffs across different firms, I began to question what was unexpected and what I was actually expecting. So when faced with these changing circumstances, I decided to think of it like, hey, it's raining at the beginning of my marathon. What are the actions I can take? I may not be able to change the weather. I don't control the legal market for the legal market and the demand for legal services or the broader economy. But what I do control is how do I react in the face of those changes. For me, those actions led me to have two parts of my plan. One was to be open to work of all types, and be ready to get the most out of that work. I think the second was to be ready with a backup plan. Mine was, the backup plan part was to run an analysis about what are things I should be prepared for if things don't work out in the job that I'm in. So I did the analysis, most important analysis when you're doing that, which is where do I have the most couches I can sleep on? I determined that was in the state of New York, so I said, well, I should probably take the New York State Bar and get admitted there, just in case, because I want to, gravitate to the highest concentration of those couches. Fortunately, work would eventually pick up, and I did not need to embark on the couch surfing plan B. But one thing I did do during that time is said yes to a lot of work, including work outside of my basic practice area, work that was really unglamorous. But the thing I wanted to do was whatever the work was, I wanted to get the most out of it. I wanted to do it to the highest level that I could, and I wanted to make sure I took away something from that work that I'd be able to advance my skill set, advance my understanding of something. And so I did that. Whether it was doing document review for whatever antitrust matters, building a diligence room, things that might not have normally come on my plate, I definitely accepted and tried to learn as much as I could from it. Fast forward to today. I think you'll be met with many unexpected challenges as you embark on your career. Some of those will be on an individual basis, whether it's challenges within your family, your personal friend group, or just with yourself. Some of those challenges will be macro, things that are far outside of your control. The change for demand in legal services, the change in career paths at different types of employers, evolutions in our profession, peaks and valleys in hiring trends, or new shifts that are larger, such as introduction of new technologies such as artificial intelligence. Each types of these events will challenge you at unexpected times and in different ways. So I urge you to be ready to take action as these items arise and embrace whatever new opportunities come with these developments. You have the opportunity to be creative in how you respond and to really learn from whatever that situation might be so that you can prepare for the longer journey of your career. So final point is that thing I would tell myself early in my career is to be approachable. Now, I don't just mean this in the sense of you're at an event such as this and people want to come up and talk to you. Well, of course, you want to be able to do that. But really what I think about it is in multiple facets, meaning that if you're going to make excellent work product, how are you able to communicate that to a broad audience? How can you deliver readable advice or communications that are not just readable to other attorneys, but are readable to other members within your client base, whatever that may be, or just generally, depending on where your profession goes, it may be that you're working with members of the general public and you need to make sure that your advice is consumable by those folks. So I found myself through my career, started my career, finished in law school, and having done a lot of work writing, various legal memos, briefs, answers to exams, written part of bar exam, and really thinking about like the nuance of all the legal issues. And that's, I think some of the interesting parts when you're studying law. If you really get into complexity and peeling back the onion and all that, it's it can be fascinating. However, I started my career, I sat down and you do your first work project, and the moment in which you're communicating with somebody at the client, you're like, great, I'm ready to do this. And you need to write a cover email. You're like, well, okay, do I actually make this, you do the first try, you're like, you think about, where's that person reading this email? Who is the person reading this email? Am I writing this to an attorney at the client? Maybe a more complicated email is fine. But even then, they're probably reading it on their phone in the midst of one of 20 other emails, possibly in transit somewhere. They may not really want the cover email to give them all the nuance if you've got all of that in the main deliverable. But like thinking about what's that right balance between something that's, meets the demand, but is also consumable. So, I said, okay, the most complicated version is probably not the right way to go. And then you think, well, maybe the other end isn't the way to go either. The here you go, see below, see attachment. So it's something in between those two. And that in itself is a lot of the how about learning to practice law and how to make your communications approachable. While there are a lot of attorneys in the country, and you may be writing to one, there are actually a lot more people who didn't study law. And so the more you can communicate with that broader group of people who have expertise in other areas, the more valuable that communication you have, will be. So, I thought about in those situations, like learning the balance between providing the information that's really important for someone to take a look at, the can't miss, the key things that they might be focused on. That required me to like really think substantively about it. And the avoiding making it so verbose that I got lost in the mix. So I challenge each of you today to think about in your work and the different opportunities you may encounter, how to make sure you're developing an approachable communication style. And that may mean that that may be part of your main career or the way you're practicing and the audience and client base you're serving. That may mean taking on different activities within your law school journey that give you some of that opportunity to talk with different types of potential clients. Or that may mean doing pro bono work as you start your career in order to continue to develop that skill. So make no mistake, you want to know both. You want to be able to communicate and give the nuance of the issues, but you also want to be able to communicate at a level that resonates with people who have different skills or background or training. And both of them are valuable, but to the extent you can communicate with a much broader audience or people with different set of skills, I think over the course of your career, you'll find that to be one of the most valuable traits that you have in communication. So to wrap up, the 3 pieces of wisdom that I would give myself, even if I was embarking on my career today, are to be the best investment, be ready to take action in the face of the unexpected, and to be approachable. Thank you.